Jimmy Carr has faced an intense backlash after a joke about the Holocaust went viral.
But I've got to say, Jimmy Carr, I'm not going to repeat the joke, or anybody in the audience who whooped and clapped at a joke about the genocide of travellers and gypsies. You are all complete incorrigible turds.
If you want to have comedy in society, you're going to have to accept that everyone is going to get picked on every now and again.
So Nadine Dorries is saying that her government's online safety bill could have dealt with Jimmy Carr's joke, which I find incredibly ominous.
In today's society, it's so hard for gypsies, Romany gypsies, to integrate into society as it is. And this just sets us back.
And if you're going to start getting offended at people not liking your people, maybe you need to do some community policing for the behaviour before blaming everybody else for hating the worst parts of your community.
Hello everyone, you've just heard a series of contrasting opinions on a joke told by controversial comedian Jimmy Carr. A joke about genociding gypsies. Let's take a listen.
Right, this should be a career ender. Okay, strap in everyone, you ready? When people talk about the Holocaust, they talk about the tragedy and horror of 6 million Jewish lives being lost to the Nazi war machine. But they never mention the thousands of gypsies that were killed by the Nazis. No one ever wants to talk about that because no one ever wants to talk about the positives.
I hope you didn't laugh, as according to Judge Rob Rinder, that would make you a complete incorrigible turd. Shame on you. Commenting on stuff like this isn't exactly my area, but I find I am intrigued by the contrasting and visceral opinions arising, with, I suspect, some cynical political power plays thrown in. While some of the offence taken by the gypsy community is perhaps understandable, it does stretch credulity to think that so many politicians and media figures suddenly don't understand what a joke is. I mean, it's not like they're a new invention. I can remember them being around for at least the duration of my lifetime anyway. More specifically, there seems to be a difficulty in understanding that jokes aren't meant to be taken literally. I'm aware that a percentage of people do struggle to understand things in non-literal ways. There's a story about Warren Mitchell, the actor who played racist Londoner Alf Garnett, that he was approached by a couple of white men who told him they loved it when he stuck it to the coons. Mr. Mitchell had to inform them that they had taken things rather too literally, and in actuality people with racist attitudes such as themselves were in fact the butt of his jokes. It's hard to believe this confinement to a literalist worldview extends to the intelligentsia who occupy, if not politics, then certainly the media. At the very least, they seem to be putting a certain level of effort into not understanding. Jimmy Carr tells disgusting jokes. If you think he's being in any way literal, you would have to believe that he's a child sex offender.
Here's my opinion, for what it's worth. I think you know a girl is too young for you if you're having to make the aeroplane noise to get your cock in her mouth. Here comes the train into the tunnel. When I was younger, I couldn't talk to women because I was hiding in their wardrobes masturbating. Wetting your bed is embarrassing as a child, but as an adult, wetting a child's bed is mortifying. It's almost impossible to explain that shit away.
So forgive me if I find it hard to understand why people who now believe Jimmy wants to exterminate the gypsies have failed to report him to the police for his confessed crimes. I'd like to take a moment to look at why Jimmy's gypsy joke worked. If the audience don't find the idea of genociding gypsies any funnier than they find pedophilia, why did they laugh? I actually think one of Jimmy's critics, a Benjamin Butterworth on talk radio, got it exactly right, but for the wrong reasons. Let's take a listen.
But for me, it's not about that you can't make jokes about dark things. It's that, why did he make a joke about gypsies? You know, he wouldn't make that about gay men. They were another of the minorities that were targeted, the persecution of Nazis. And he wouldn't make it because the audience wouldn't have laughed at that. And the fact that they laughed at this joke about gypsies and travellers reveals the prejudice that those groups still face.
But don't you...
I think that's essentially true, and the whole point of the joke. The average British person doesn't feel much tension around other groups persecuted by the Nazis. Nobody is sufficiently annoyed by the occasional knock on the door from Jehovah's Witnesses or the annual Gay Pride Parade to feel any tension towards those groups. Gypsies are different. Research from the University of Birmingham reveals they are the most disliked group in society, with nearly 45% of survey participants admitting negative feelings towards them. By comparison, the next most unliked group were Muslims, with 25% conceding bad feelings. My guess is that Jimmy Carr's audience is composed of slightly left-of-centre people who embody liberal values. They believe in treating their fellow human beings as individuals and not confining them to a group identity. They will probably agree that traveller communities have had a raw deal, with the disappearance of common land and their traditional way of life being eroded by modern society. And yet, they probably wouldn't want the caravans turning up outside their houses either. They might harbour the belief that traveller communities contain rougher elements and are more associated with crime. This creates a tension within them, between deeply held values and cynical pragmatism. The joke allows for that tension to be released in laughter. The audience are being invited to laugh at their own contradictions. Jimmy Carr is saying something that is not literally true, to draw out a deeper, hidden truth we perhaps wouldn't want to admit to. What society feels tension about changes with time. I recently watched an episode of the 90s sketch show Harry Enfield and Chums. There's a sketch called Homophobic Dad, where a gay son brings his partner home to meet his parents. What's funny is his father isn't deliberately nasty. Far from it, he tries his best to be as welcoming and accepting as possible. However, he just can't stop his latent homophobia slipping out.
Look, they'll be here soon. Just relax. Treat them the same as any other couple.
Yes, of course, you're quite right. Of course you are.
They're just two normal people in love.
Yes, of course, of course. Of course they are.
Hello, love.
Hello, Mum. Hi, Dad. Hello, Tom.
This is Dominic.
Hello, yes. Nice to meet you. It's the first time Tom's introduced us to one of his special friends. So, you're dominant, then? I'm so sorry. Dominic.
Dominic, yes.
Yes. Awfully nice and completely normal to meet you. Jolly good, jolly good.
Nice to meet you, too.
Not too nice, I hope.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice drink.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, well, bottoms up. I'm so sorry. I am sorry. I meant queers. Cheers.
Dinner's nearly ready. Barry, will you come and carve?
Right, yes, that's a manly job. Why not? That's right, you two just sit down and make yourself at home. Home!
Today this sketch feels dated. It wouldn't work if made now. It was specific to a time when a generation of men who had grown up when homosexuality was so wrong as to be illegal were now being asked to sit down for dinner with their children's same-sex partners. That's quite a big cognitive shift for anyone to make, and Harry Enfield allowed us to laugh about it. Back on topic, Jimmy's joke lands at a time when the traveller way of life faces serious threat in Britain, with new laws proposed that will make trespass with a vehicle a criminal offence. This could bring about the end of a substantial part of their culture, the travelling part. Given that, I can see why they might find his joke nasty and vindictive. I also find the attitude expressed in the opening clips, that gypsies should police their own communities better, obnoxious. How exactly are they going to do that? honest, hard-working travellers have no more power to police their communities than the average person has to change British foreign policy. Are we then collectively responsible for the Iraq War? Censoring humour, however, does nothing to fix the problems gypsies face, or to address the 45% of people who acknowledge holding negative attitudes towards them. I understand some people just don't resonate with dark humour, but if we suppress it, the inner tension it vents still remains. It may find a less healthy way to come out, when such comments can only be uttered by those who truly believe them. Thanks for listening. I'll link to a Traveller Times article on the new anti-traveller laws moving through the British Parliament. As a counterbalance to my own, you can also find their thoughts on Jimmy's joke there too.
When I was a kid, I was scared of the dentist. He was a paedophile.